Thank you. So I get to introduce Andrew that works with me. This is Andrew Johnson. I don't really know anything about robots. I'm not a morning person, and I hate public speaking. So yeah, this should be interesting. But so I'm gonna start off by showing a photo of what we're gonna be talking about today, which is drones. I guess I didn't realize that I knew something about robots until maybe Taylor asked me to do this. But so Andrew is a drone pilot. We found out, a year ago that this is something that we might be able to have access to. And Andrew he works with me and he was really into it. So we started flying the drone about a year ago. I started working with Andrew in 2009. And since then, we've seen the technology change so fast. And Art Howard and I were talking about this before. It's just, before the event today, it's just so hard to keep up. And every single year, it seems like there's a new gimmick. Like there's a new gimmick every single year. First it was the DSLR, at least for me, first it was the DSLR full frame camera, shallow depth of field. Wow, we can do HD video with this really small camera and it looks cinematic. And then we started getting into camera motion and sliders and dollies, and then everyone started talking about dynamic range and how can we get the best image quality from these cameras, and just better frame rates, higher resolution. Oh, we can do slow motion now. And it almost became a little bit overwhelming for me, someone who isn't necessarily the most technical person. My area of expertise is more in storytelling and less in technical stuff, which is where Andrew comes in. So he actually helped. He built the drone. This is it's a Phantom 2 drone that we're going to talk about later. He's going to go over kind of the technical specs of it. But I'm going to scroll down a little. When we first got the drone, it's a little bit of a scary word. So we're thinking, well, what are we going to call this in public? Because we didn't want to be walking around an airport saying, "Did you bring the drone?" So Andrew has a funny story. He was walking through security and checking it, and the guy said, "Is this a drone?" He said, "No, it's a quadcopter." And he says, "Oh, like a drone?" And Andrew said, "No, it's an aerial filming platform." It's just like a word he did not want to say in public, and I kind of don't blame him. But there's all kind of uses for the drone. Really today, we're going to be talking about one specific use for the drone, which is how it can be used in visual storytelling. And that's, like I said, kind of my area of expertise. The public perception of the drone has changed a lot since we started flying a year ago. I'm just kind of curious, who here has ever seen one in the sky? Who has flown one? I think, and probably if we did this talk a year from now, a lot more people will be raising their hands. When we first started flying, we would launch, from wherever, and it didn't matter where we launched from, a crowd would form. And this is very stressful for us because it's very stressful putting a $2,000 device into the sky that just wants to crash and wants to fall. And this was a shot. We were in El Salvador shooting earlier this year, and that's our cab driver sitting on that rock. He didn't speak a word of English, and I was trying to explain to him why we needed to be away from a crowd to launch. And I was trying to, think of the word in Spanish or some way to explain what we were trying to do. Like I was trying to say airplane with a camera on it, whatever. And he knew the English word drone. I think it was one of the only words he knew in English. And I just thought it was really interesting that he knew exactly what we were talking about. So it's just spreading so fast. People are getting used to seeing them in the air. And these dogs just went, I wish we had video of this because they were about to attack me. It's like a much scarier situation than it looks like. So when Andrew and I first this is a friend of mine launching a drone, and we call this the Jesus drone photo because he just looks like he's just calling out. But when we first got our drone, we made a real conscious effort to practice before we took it near anything valuable or any humans. And we practice at Dorothea Dix Park. I'm sure all of you guys know where that is. There's a huge wide open space. It's great for practicing. It's fun. You can go out there and no one will really bother you. The other airplane hobbyists that hang out there will sort of throw you dirty looks because we're clouding up their airspace. But practice, was really important. It's really fun just to put the drone in the air and start going. And it's actually pretty easy to fly in some respects. And then when you start talking about getting a specific shot and getting close to things and these very motivated camera movements, it gets really scary and sort of complicated very fast. We fly the drone with a GoPro camera attached to it. This is just one type of drone, and there are hundreds of different types of them. Andrew really wanted us to have the ability to always upgrade. And that's why we got this drone with this camera so that we could always upgrade. And sure enough, we had a GoPro 3, then we upgraded to the GoPro 3 Black, and then pretty much the next month, the GoPro 4 came out. So we just went literally and traded the cameras in and got whatever the newest one was. So that was important that we were able to upgrade. Flying the drone with a GoPro on it, who here has ever used a GoPro? Cool. Who here ever got really awesome footage with their GoPro? Yeah, see, it's one person. The cameras just want to make bad footage. They make like a fisheye look, and they're really hard to use, and it only has one button. And so you have to scroll through this menu, and you really have to understand how to almost manipulate the camera to do what you want, because when you take it out of the box, it's shaky and it's fisheye, and usually the resolution isn't right. And so I had used GoPros a lot before, which helped, but when you put it in the air, it becomes a little bit scary. There's so many limitations to the camera. The battery life, of the drone is only 15 minutes, which Andrew will kind of go over the specs of the drone. You have to really pay attention to the direction of the light because you can get a lot of rolling shutter with the GoPro. It creates banding, the distortion. There's just kind of all different types of limitations with the GoPro, as a lot of people know. But what we really wanted to do, so what we really wanted to do was practice and get good with the drone. And then Andrew and I wanted to just dream up any idea that we could think of what we would want to drone. And we would just sit in the office. It would be a Wednesday, and he would say, "Can we go drone a hand glider?" Yes. We would just get in the car and go the next day out to Kitty Hawk and fly. One day we thought, he has a really good friend who's a fly fisherman, and we were wondering if we could get him catching a fish, out at the Hall River. So we just went out the next day and did it. We had this idea that we wanted to drone a wakeboarder, doing tricks and fly the drone over him, which added another layer of fear to this because it's over water. And then we went to go fly the wakeboarder. You'll see I actually make a cameo because I'm driving the boat, and Andrew is laying in the bottom of the boat, flying the drone over us. But you can't really see him, which is good. So just one quick video clip I'm going to show to illustrate what can happen if you kind of don't know what you're doing flying the drone. This is one of the incidents that can happen if you aren't careful, and we've had a lot of these. And I'm not proud to say that I was the one behind the wheel here. Yeah. I think, does it? You're good. So, and you can see me freaking out back there. Yeah. So that was not this drone. It was someone else's drone that they trusted me to fly for some reason. And it had a first-person video where you can actually see what the camera's filming, but it was through an iPhone. And so what happened there, and this is just one of many things that can go wrong, it froze while I was flying. So I'm looking at the FPV and it froze, and I didn't realize that I actually wasn't parallel to the tractor. And then we thought, obviously, it's a miracle that the camera, like I don't know what's gonna happen to me down the road to make up for that, but this is also a good time to note that you can't get insurance for these. My insurance agent, they can't tell you exactly why. I don't know if that's like a legal thing, but they just said, that's not actually camera equipment. And I said, well, what is it then? And then they were just kind of like, stop asking questions now. But there is a company that will sell you insurance, and all it insures against is the damage that it actually does. It doesn't insure the camera and the drone. So if I damaged that tractor, if I had insurance, then it would have covered it. So all that said and done, Andrew and I last year compiled all the clips that we did kind of in that experimental phase, and we put together a little short aerial film that's called Alone in the Sky, and this is that. So it's about 2 or 3 minutes long. So obviously aerial filming and aerial photography is nothing new, but I think that having the ability for so many more people to make images like this, it's really just, I was writing this out earlier and Andrew laughed because I said it's democratized the skies, and he goes, new catchphrase. Andrew, you want to talk about the...
Yeah.
So in the spirit of robots, he's going to tell you about the actual drone.
So this is the DJI Phantom 2 drone. We made the decision to get, they have the Phantom 2 and they have the Phantom 2 Vision. And the Vision comes with a little camera attached, which is fine. Hobbyists, prosumers, whatever. We made the decision to get one without a camera on it. and get one that has the ability to add this little gimbal and the GoPro on the bottom. The reason why we did that is because the drone itself, while it has limitations, there are limitations that we're acceptable dealing with. The battery life is just, it's a lithium-ion battery, lasts about 15 minutes with the gimbal and the camera attached. It flies at about 22 miles per hour, which oddly enough is exactly how fast wakeboarders go, so we could like just barely keep up with the wakeboard. But in terms of the platform itself, it's pretty manageable. With the camera, that was our main concern about being able to upgrade and improve upon. So with the little gimbal that we have attached here, it's a little 3-axis gimbal so that when it's on, I'll turn it on so you guys can see it in action. It stabilizes the camera. So when the drone is on, this camera stays stationary. And on the remote, you have a little control so you can make it, so you can pan it down so it's like bird's eye view, or pan it straight up so it's like looking out at you guys. And other than that, it stays mostly horizontal and level with the field of view. And so the gimbal and the GoPro, those can be taken off and replaced at any given time. So like Jason said, we started out with the Hero 3, then we had the Hero 3 Black, now we have the Hero 4 Black, and I'm sure this summer another GoPro will come out and we can just swap out the camera and put a new, better camera on. And so as technology improves, you know, 5-10 years down the road, I'm sure there'll be a much better drone and we'll upgrade the actual platform. But in terms of the camera, we can upgrade the camera every year at a lower cost than we could to just upgrade the entire drone. That being said, with the GoPro, there are a lot of limitations with the camera. Like Jason said, the actual GoPro itself, but also because with the GoPro, although there's like a GoPro app and you can see a live stream of what the GoPro sees, there's a 5-second delay. It does it over Wi-Fi, so you have like a 150-foot range, which is not acceptable for when we're flying this thing a mile away. So as a professional, we have to be able to see the screen and see what the camera sees at all times to be able to get the shots that we want. So in order to do that, we have to make some modifications. There's a lot of solder, a lot of broken things, a lot of broken wires. So this is the actual transmitter for the live stream of the video. So I made, you can get these little cables for the GoPro, but I just made it because we didn't, I think we were like on a deadline. We had a shoot coming up in a couple of days and we didn't have time to order this part from Hong Kong. So I just made it instead. This is just a little USB connector that plugs into the GoPro and sends a composite video feed to this little transmitter. And this transmitter sends over RF, it's like, for the nerds in the room, it's like 5.8 gigahertz RF standard radio frequency. And it sends it to this little monitor on the remote. This is the remote here. I've got a little strap because I wear it around my neck. And so this is the monitor here that has a built-in little receiver that the transmitter sends to. So that this way, when I'm sitting here on my remote and I have it, you know, around my neck, I can see exactly what the camera sees as the camera's moving. Which again is an absolute necessity as we're flying, because especially when we're in tight quarters or in a situation where we're flying over people, we need to make sure that the people below us are safe, the drone is safe, and we're not going to harm the buildings. We have crashed the drone. This is the second body this drone has seen. All the guts on the inside I pulled out and put in a new body because as we were practicing, I think we probably crashed 10 times, and we crashed for some pretty high elevation. And so the drone was pretty screwed up after a couple of times crashing. So we replaced the body. In terms of the actual drone itself, it's pretty standard for DC brushless motors controlled by electronic speed control units that are connected to basically a little tiny computer on the inside here that has an IMU, an inertial measurement unit, and a GPS to be able to keep it level. So it gets, when you turn it on, it gets a GPS lock so that it knows where it is in the world. And then it also has this inertial measurement unit so that you can tell it's straight and level and it's not off to the side. And as the wind blows, it'll correct itself and keep itself in place. The important thing to know about this is that if it doesn't have a GPS lock, it won't hover properly. So if you're inside, flying inside, which we've done very stupidly, and it doesn't have a GPS lock, it won't hover properly, it doesn't fly like it normally used to, and it's much harder to fly. So again, there are limitations with it, but overall, I'm excited to see the technology grow.
The FAA guidelines for flying drones, just in the spirit of keeping this very politically safe. You're not supposed to fly over 400 feet. You're not supposed to fly within 3 miles of an airport, and most of the drones now won't even launch if you're near an airport. They have it programmed in. You're supposed to keep the aircraft always in the line of sight and avoid no-fly zones. There's a website, I think it's like noflyzones.com, that will show you. You can go on and register your house, so it's a no-fly zone. Always avoid pedestrians, wildlife, private property. The FAA is really confused by all this, and we could have a whole separate talk about the kind of legality of drones and what's going on with that. And it's very exciting and complicated, and it's all kind of unraveling literally as we speak. So it's really important to us that this doesn't just become a gimmick that we do on every shoot because we can. It's been very hard to do that because we love flying the drone so much and it's so cool. But getting a shot like this, we do a lot of short form, 2 to 3 minute web documentaries, and this is a 40-second long shot. And it just doesn't really have a place in that form of storytelling. So a thing that Andrew and I talk about a lot is how do we incorporate this technology into our work appropriately so that it doesn't get overused and that it actually can help push the story forward that we're trying to tell. We spend a lot of time thinking about the story we're trying to tell and exactly what shot might help get that across. And we want to always use the drone footage to add to the story and not become too distracting. I'll turn this down. Yeah, I'll just mute that. So this was a pretty windy situation. I remember Andrew telling me that. Which brings us to, this was a fun, we used it for a group photo. Andrew and I teach some in the summer. That's Pat Davison from UNC Chapel Hill, if anyone, he's the director of the documentary visuals program there. But Andrew did a group photo of the workshop that UNC does, and that's what that was. So this is just kind of a lot of footage that we've gathered over the past year that wasn't in that reel. Andrew and I worked on a documentary called The Last Barn Dance, and we did it with another filmmaker from Chapel Hill. His name's Ted Richardson, and we've been working on it for the last 3.5 years. And I'm telling this story to promote our screening, which is this Sunday at the Hall River Ballroom at 7 o'clock, but also to give a good example of how we were able to incorporate the drone footage into the film in a way that really made sense. Randy Lewis is the subject of the film, and he's a dairy farmer in Alamance County, and we've chronicled his struggle over the last 3.5 years to save his dairy farm. And at the same time, preserve the tradition of the barn dance that he's been holding for over 30 years in his barn. Randy's a real character, and we've had a blast with him over the years, and he's really interested in kind of like camera stuff. And we did a rough cut of the film that showed at the Fresh Stocks at the Full Frame Theater about this time last year, and some of the feedback we got from, and this is before we had the drone, some of the feedback that we got from people in the crowd was they didn't have a sense of place of where the film was. We were so close to the subject and so close to the character that they didn't really have a feeling of where they actually were, where you could actually see the farm and see the space. And it's so hard to show. There were parts of the farm that I hadn't even been to, and I really didn't know what they looked like. So Andrew went out with our editor and flew the drone and got some really incredible drone footage, and we ended up using quite a bit of it in the film to kind of give it a lot of breathing room, because you spend so much time getting actually close to a character, it helps to kind of take a step back. And this is the trailer for the last barn dance.
Hey, sugar, are you hungry again? I'm married to this place like I am breathing oxygen. This is what I am. Most everybody that I talk to anyway around here feels like their days are numbered. When I'm finished, I guess it'll just be done. Hi, baby. Wait, Joe.
There it goes. If this works, it will be the opportunity for us to stay in this business.
There are minutes I feel like it's going to be the greatest thing. And there are other minutes I am scared to death. In 40 years, people will not believe we even did this to start with.
Yeah, I worry about that. You're absolutely right.
I mean, it won't be, it'll be gone.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for coming. I can really only speak sort of anecdotally. I had a newspaper job. I worked in Concord, New Hampshire. And I was doing a story about a logging family that did logging. And I convinced the editor somehow that I needed to get an aerial. This is like 2003. And he sent me up in a little Cessna plane that his buddy had, and there was a hole in the floor. And I puked for like 3 hours after because I was just looking through the camera through this little hole. I don't really know, Art, how much does it cost to rent a helicopter? Like $1,000 an hour? Yeah. So yeah, I think that answer. Yeah, $1,000 an hour versus, you know, a couple grand to get a pretty good setup like this.
Although I will say there are shots that you can't really get with the drone. Like the drone has limitations on height and how far away you can go. So like it's not like a across the board replacement for going out in a helicopter. And I think now the big thing with the drone is that you have to put in the time to figure out how to fly it and how to get the shots that you want to get with it. Whereas before, if you go up in a helicopter, you know, point a camera out the window, you're going to get a cool shot. With the drone, it's a little more difficult than that. In terms of, so now it's like, instead of, there's not like a monetary cost, but there's like a time cost associated with figuring out how to fly it.
That's a really good point, because Andrew and I have talked about this all along, that we view this as a two-man job. Like someone is a pilot and someone is thinking about how the shot fits into the story, and obviously is keeping an eye on the drone. So yeah, totally. And one day, Andrew, we were talking about renting a jib for something, and he goes, "Why would we rent a jib? We have a jib that has an infinite length." So yeah, we do, like in the last barn dance, that shot of him walking with the cows, it looks like it could be, you know, steady cam shot, but it's just flying right along behind Randy. Yeah. I think the answer is we're always looking for an excuse to get it in. And that, I think, you know, is part of it, is the newness of it. The one thing that we haven't talked about is the weather. And we've flown overseas, brought the drone, had it with us for 2 weeks, and we were talking about this before, and then we never took it out of the case the whole time, just because the weather. So it's really interesting bringing it full circle, because yeah, at the end of the day, nature's gonna decide when you can put this thing in the sky.
Phantom is just one of many companies that exist and that will exist in the future that make drones. And there are drones now that you can program to fly a predefined route. One of the new ones, the 3DR Solo, I think it is, allows you to basically put it in the air and it flies itself, and it'll fly a circle or fly a straight line. I don't know how. It's not like 100% accurate. Like it'll like when you say it'll hover within like a 3-foot block, 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot block of air. So putting it up over a construction site, you may get close enough to the exact same spot every time to have it look good in a time lapse situation. But I'd be surprised if you could do that.
But we've left it hovering. Like I was doing a shot a couple weeks ago waiting for a biker to come through the shot, so I just left it hovering and the clouds were coming through, and when we scrubbed through to look to see when he came, you see this awesome time lapse of the clouds just coming through. So yeah, it still looks really cool, but we haven't actually utilized that yet. Time lapse is another gimmick that sort of like came and went with video, but we use it sometimes still too.
The one at the beginning of that one, yeah, that was probably like 3/4 of
For the record, that was not in the U.S.
that was no
Yep. Still rolling here.
We've flown the drone like a mile and a half away. It's like the range for the drone is like a mile and a half. As is the FPV will go like 2 miles. So you can actually fly the drone further than that controller can see it. So there's been a point where I like flew it so far away that it like stopped and turned around and came home.
Yeah.
But I could see it on the video. I could see it on the FPV because the FPV range is further than the drone. So yeah, you can fly it really far.
But the battery only lasts 15 minutes, so.
You have shots that you're like, oh crap, it's a great shot, the battery's gonna run out.
Yep. Yep. It's a constant balance. Oh, we wanted to show we sort of ran out of time a little bit, but there's a group of filmmakers called Brain Farm, and if you get a chance and are like into this drone stuff, they have a video where they flew a Phantom, and he says, this is either going to be the biggest step, the biggest technological leap we've ever done, or $100,000 mistake. That's how they start off the video. But yeah, we talk about it all the time. Like, how can we get a better camera in the sky? And it's only a matter of time, but just with the way the laws are right now, it's just really not worth. And Andrew and I shoot with 5D Mark IIIs and Canon cinema cameras mostly, like the C100 Mark II we use a lot. And yeah, I don't know. That's a whole different level of stress. I might die before. I'll have a heart attack if we put the C100 in the sky. So yeah, and that's what's really interesting to me. I mean, if Hudson wants to go fly the drone for fun in his backyard, he can pretty much do whatever you want as long as you stay within those rules. But if you're doing it and getting paid, then it's a whole different story. And the FAA really wants to control commercial drone flights. And Andrew and I and what we do, we're kind of at the very, very low level of kind of what they're concerned about. And there's a lot of people that want to make a lot of money using this technology. And there's a huge backlog of people trying to get commercial droning permits. CNN just got theirs a couple weeks ago, if that gives you any idea of kind of how complicated this whole thing is. But yeah, there is a huge difference. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.